Rick and Morty. Need I say anything more? Right, well, I mean, I should probably do the video.
Today in Nerd History!
Rick and Morty has pushed the limits of the animated sitcom in just about every way imaginable. There's the humor, there's the lore, there's the gross burping in the middle of dialogue that you have to endure before you can actually start loving the show. But any fan will tell you it's the small details, things in the background, things that hardly go noticed that really make the show something special. But certain details have gone without any kind of official explanation, which has led to some really interesting fan theories. Here's one of my favorites. What if I were to tell you that Rick has been planning to kill himself for the past 3 seasons? Okay, I mean, it wouldn't be entirely surprising, but stick with me because this gets weird.
It's not unreasonable. The character's totally unhinged. His intelligence is an exhausting curse for him. Really, he could do himself in at any time, and he's had dozens, if not hundreds, of opportunities to die during the series so far.
But a popular theory is if he's gonna die, he's gotta do it the right way. And the solution?
It just might be the helmet that appeared on his workbench in the 2nd episode of the show that's remained there ever since, and in total has made over a dozen appearances. In the cold open to the episode Vindicators 3, Rick is even messing around with it, so it's clearly something that the show's crew is aware of and is intentionally placing. It looks kind of like a colander for straining pasta with some studded red plugs in there. And at first glance, it may appear to be a reference to Doc Brown's bizarre headgear from Back to the Future, which would make sense. Rick was directly based on Doc Brown and originally named Doc in the non-pilot of the show.
But as a number of people on the internet have pointed out, it bears an even more striking resemblance to a certain piece of creepypasta that circulated the net not too long ago. A real-life suicide helmet. Now strap in because things are gonna get, actually pretty grisly here.
The legend goes like this, and the details are always a little bit different. Someone is either visited in school class by a coroner, or they're shadowing a coroner. And when the coroner is asked what the strangest thing they ever saw was, they bring up the suicide helmet. So it goes that sometime ambiguously in the 1970s, a teenager with a bad family situation had his beloved dirt bike taken away by his parents. This was the final straw for the unwell but bright kid, who went on to spend all of his spare time putting together a makeshift contraption, a helmet rigged up with 8 or 9 shotgun shells pointed inward that could be electrically triggered to basically liquefy his head. When it was complete, he put it on and hooked it up to the light switch in his garage and sat in the dark waiting on his dirt bike for his mother to come in, flip the switch, and unwittingly blow his head to pieces.
A final, very dark revenge. Now this is an urban legend, so it has to be taken with however many shakers worth of grains of salt. There are so many versions of the story that it's impossible to tie it to a particular event. However, the photos are very indisputably real.
Urban legend or not, Rick and Morty may well have taken inspiration from the original suicide helmet for one of Rick's gadgets. After all, this is a guy known for having a death wish.
On top of that, Rick and Morty is a show that's known for its meticulous detail and its meaningful continuity, including Rick's death wish.
Have you noticed that Rick almost never wears a seatbelt, but Morty's almost always strapped in? That's not by accident. Given these suicidal tendencies, it's entirely believable that Rick would be crafting the perfect way for him to jump ship off this mortal coil. In retrospect, the helmet adds a layer of despondence to every scene in the garage. On the edge of frame looms an object that represents all of Rick's fears, his frustration with his own inability to form lasting bonds.
At the same time, Rick stares at the helmet every day and still hasn't put it on. In part, I'm sure, because the very act would mean surrender, and f*** that. Yes, Rick and Morty is a very silly show, and not everything is symbolic. But in a series where a guy turned himself into a pickle and that had a deeper meaning, I think there's room for a helmet.